This foundation, hopefully by the end of the year, is gonna be up and set. And do you mind if I talk about the brick for 1 second, about what could be happening come spring with the chimney?
That's completely up to you.
I'll give you in a little possibility that might happen. Now that this is exposed, it's going to deteriorate.
Well, you should flip it back to the hearth if you're gonna do that. You're gonna put your neck on the block.
All right. All right, don't tell anyone. This has been discovered over the last couple of months. Greg and David and others that have an understanding of what we have and how precious this is and how it can be lost. The talk now is start the foundation and get donations and build it back up, at least up to the first level, because it needs pressure. Because the mortar is just clamshell mortar. It needs pressure and it needs to be preserved from weather. And to have, you've already identified one gentleman that's skilled in restoration of brick, 17th century, and building that mortar on site. Build it back. A real 17th century brick structure with a beehive oven, a working actual double-sided. What a unique opportunity. We'll have film crews down, been filming it over the weekend, have a great teaching opportunity. But this could happen early spring, as soon as possible, because we don't want it to fall apart and decay. It's precious. There isn't another one. It's an amazing piece, and it's, my wife and I, we're stewards of this project, but it's our heritage. It's an amazing find. And so that's in its infancy, but yeah, you might be seeing that in the springtime. Great opportunity. But that's what the foundation's all about, turning it into a teaching. And then I gotta put it in a driveway and electricity. I haven't told them about that. So there's all kinds of opportunities, but David, if nothing else, you want to open up for Q&A?
Sure, if anyone has any questions,
Please.
Are any of the previous inhabitants hanging around with spirit forms?
Okay. You know what? When you own a house that's about 370 years old, everyone goes, ooh, creepy. My wife and I built the house in East Sandwich in 1996. Brand new house. You know what? That house is creepier than the one we're in. Seriously. This house is solid as a rock. Half of it's held together without nails. It's just, pins and holes holding it together. It's solid. I mean, that house has been there a long time. It doesn't creak. It doesn't moan. It's completely been rehabbed. It's a wonderful home. Now, are there any over this side? I hope so. They can stay there. We can't see the dig site from our house. We have that little marsh area in between. So this isn't disruptive to our lives. And who knows, maybe we can make for a great Halloween. We'll see. Any other questions? Anyone, please? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite remember. Have you narrowed down when your house was the original house was originally moved?
Oh, moved. We believe it was around 1810-ish.
yeah, 1810, 1817.
So up to 1810, you think it could have been this site?
Yeah, because we have found evidence of 19th century occupation, it's early stuff.
Okay.
Certainly, I mean, we haven't really found any evidence of 19th century occupation that
Has been
states
waiting.
sort of like 1830s.
And so if you think about those other pictures of, say, the swag over the front door and the inner walls being built up, as well as that roof line up top with the shingles that are around that 1810-ish date or late 1700s. So when the move came, looks like somebody moved the house there, put in these inner walls, made a little gable end on the end, covered everything up. So the structure was sound. And in those days, you don't throw anything away, I guess. Let's go move that house, get it away from the pond, and make it practical.
This question I have to hear, Brett.
Where did the Toby will survive? Where was it found?
That's in the Barnstable probate. Craig actually, I think it shows up there as well as in Mass Archives. But Craig, he was, and Craig's just magical this way. He was actually looking for something else, and he came across this Toby will, and it describes Not only does it describe, he calls it the stone end of the house, and Brent's a very good friend of mine who's very knowledgeable about what we're talking about, and actually has done a lot of timber framing. But that foundation is a little over 18 inches wide. I mean, it's probably twice the size as the one under the wing house. So where he would call that side of this house the stone house because of that, we don't think it was an actual stone house. We think it was just a large foundation, maybe a foot or so above grade or more, with a house built on top of it. But the other thing that was interesting, he talks about a pony field in the same will, because he does describe he calls it outhousing, which could mean it could mean buildings for animals and sheds and barns. But he describes a pony field, because this is part of the subdivision, the pony field. I can't remember which kid it gets willed to, but one of the kids ends up with a pony field and the other kid gets the other stuff. But one of the other things we find, and just last weekend, it's like somebody was blowing up ponies over there. There's shoes everywhere. All these pony shoes all over the place. Well, let's see, lack of a better, it's gone up at 5:30 this morning. But some of us have to work. But anyway, that's, it's pretty, and some of the initials we found on there were some spoons and things with initials that match family members' first names. We found a spoon handle that was locally made, late 17th century with, I can't remember whose initial it was. But there's a lot of stuff, I mean, we can't say like 100%, but I'm like 99.8% sure this is Thomas Toby's house with what we found so far.
And we have a genealogy, a Toby genealogy from 1905, I believe. And in that genealogy, and it goes back to Thomas Toby. My father was Thomas Toby.
Oh, wow.
Family. But,
This could be your property.
right.
Want to buy it?
But they do give rooms in that genealogy, in the will, items, very specific, and a portion of houses were mentioned as being willed to different members of the family.
Yeah, it's fairly commonplace where they subdivide houses between spouses and family members. And even I caretake the Stephen Wing house over at Spring Hill, and he actually deeds that house to his two eldest sons in 1702, but he maintains the right in that deed to continue living until he turns in his time card in the old part of the house.
Is Toby, how do you spell Toby? Is it
T-O-B-E-Y.
Okay,
Well,
same as the Toby Hospital.
That comes from the same family.
Well,
Yes.
It does come from the same
But
family.
there's also
But there are
T-O-B-I-E,
other variations
there's
from
T-O-B-Y, there's many variations of Toby. There's T-O-B-Y, there's
Oh, right,
multiple.
right, yeah.
And I think it's T-O-B-I-E too, some
Yes.
places in the book.
And Y-E also, there's multiples
But it's the same family that, with
Correct.
the Toby Hospital.
there. Is it the
Yes,
same as
that,
Toby?
and it's from the original two brothers.
Well, I'm gonna have to approach them to be part of this foundation.
This guy has a question.
Yes.
How was the foundation moved from the area that they said?
Well, the foundation wasn't moved, the house was moved.
Yeah, the house.
But actually, that's a great question. How was a house moved? Think about it, 1800. How did they move a house? We found oxen shoes. And ox has two hooks as opposed to one large saw. And we just found another half of an oxen shoe on the site just the other day. So now we have a couple of them, we have a mating pair, hopefully. And so, yeah, they put them on rollers, and they moved houses all over the time at that point. It wasn't a problem for them.
There's a description in one of it's called primary source material. Some people write things down when they're alive, and somebody wrote about a house being moved right here in Sandwich from, I can't forget where, but over to, I think it was School Street. It's pretty late, it's in the maybe early 1800s, but the house was so big, and they didn't saw it in half or anything, but they described, and Barbara probably knows better than I do, I'm just remembering it, but they took them several teams of oxen and bulls to move this house from one side of town to the other.
There's one record that says they used 30 teams of oxen, but I
That
think
might
that
be the
was a
one.
very difficult thing
Right.
to control.
Oh, I had a question.
Just while you have the
Yes.
slide up, can you point to where the whale vertebra was located?
With what was?
The whale vertebra?
The whale bird, see this dark stain right under Tom's finger? It was literally up right against the back of the hearth and close to where we think the proximity of the beehive was. You know how,
And why do you think that? What evidence do you have for where the oven would have been?
the way that some of the bricks that we found in this immediate area were covered with mortar that looked like, now I'm gonna forget the term. Somebody at some point had, you can help me out with this, when you cover the exterior of it with
Parched?
Parging, there you go, thank you, but it's kind of like a plastering, and we found some of the mortar was, either way you look at it, convex or concave, but tiny little pieces, not like it looked like, if there was in fact an oven there, it was fairly small in the back of the hearth, on obviously the hall side, and the whale vertebrae was buried in, there was ash almost up to the very top, like flush with the whale vertebrae that was still sitting there. And it was full of, there were large chunks of charcoal in the ash from where they just, you know, were pushing it up off the main fire, I guess, onto the, up against the whale vertebrae. And it was, I think that by itself might have been part of what helped to preserve it, because it's in pretty decent shape. It's not highly corroded. Did I answer it?
Yeah, so presumably, I mean, it's hard, there's no scale in there, but that was about the middle of the back of that hearth?
Yeah, I would say.
We're looking at about a meter's worth of hearth there, maybe, a
Right.
little more?
Yeah, I
So
would
it's an
say-
8-foot hearth?
Yeah, I would say you're pretty close there.
Okay.
Because it's, I think, right to the number, it was like 8'6" from one shoulder, and that's the interior.
So you have some of the other, it doesn't just end there.
Right,
You have some of the rest of it.
right. You can see, it's not anything like this, but there's enough evidence of the other side of it where we were actually able to measure the interior and get an accurate, strong measurement.
And that's certainly all one build?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're all tied together. It's not one being built up against something else. So we think this is, this probably happened when they put that, from, again, the evidence that we have right now, it looks like this happened probably around the same time as the stone house happened, when they put that addition up against whatever, we still haven't found the front of the house yet. But we know it's there somewhere, because whoever was in the parlor couldn't have been standing outside in January wishing that he was in his brother's half of the house.
Mrs. Gershon said, it was not the favorite son.
So there's gotta be, we just haven't found it.
Yes, sir.
Did this house originally have a dirt floor in it?
No, it's called a pole floor. There were poles just laid on the floor.
Okay.
Plank on it. We have the same thing in the early half of the wing house. We were doing some restoration several years ago, and that house dates to the 1640s. And the floor in that house, the sill, it has sills, but the floor joists aren't let into the sills. There's just poles laid on the dirt inside the sills, and then the planks are put on top of it. And in that particular house, the first floor started to fail, so what they did in there is they just added another layer, so there's actually 2 floors in